So before I lose all of my viewership, just don't click off. I'm not gonna. This is a long overdue video review on the TVP. I've played over 100 games in it and have gotten almost 3k average damage. My initial impressions are I'm actually very impressed. People think that it's like underwhelming because of the DPM or whatever. I haven't actually watched other YouTubers' reviews on this, but I'll start by going through the stats. Really, I have a couple games that I want to show you that really demonstrate the capability of this thing just in combat. But I'm gonna start with, you know, it's most closely comparable to a Leo in terms of its stature. And when we look at, like, let's say like the Leo's gun handling, aim time of 3.1 seconds, and dispersion of 272, and you look at like TVP, I run double aiming on both. This has incredible aim time for what it does. It's about 1240 clip damage, and using your standard shells, of course, and it has incredible aim time for what it does. If you get close, especially like when you're with your team and when you're with your heavies, you can really help out when there's an opening, and after big gunfires you can get in all 4 of those shots. Like, the 2-second interclip is very useful for tracking a target, and if it gets away, it's very hard for the target to really move out of the line of sight, especially with like the 2 seconds. There's no other tank that really comes close to that. The shit barn does at like 2.1, but again, you're not gonna really be using that for the same thing. It does have underwhelming DPM. You should be running calibrated on it because you barely ever fire. You could run vents, but I really don't recommend that, because the penetration is really subpar. The standard is fine with calibrated. That being said, though, the premium is really garbage. Like 319, you're not gonna be finding anything with that. What you should really be doing is using the mobility. Like on this Leo, your standard pen is gonna be 255, and that's already more than the TVPs with calibrated. That really says a lot about what they want you to do with the vehicle. If it has a really bad pen, it's more likely that you're going to need to use the mobility to really get a better angle on your opponent. It only has 8 degrees of gun depression, so that being said, it's better to use this thing in a flat playing field. I know that they said that you can use the turret armor, but you should never rely on that against it, unless it's against like a 62, and then it's like a negligible, because anything on the cheeks, really, if it's not on like the mantlet, it's gonna be able to get pinned. The upper plate is reasonably better than the Leo's, but again, I really wouldn't. You're gonna see in one of the games that I'm gonna show you, I actually bounce a shot off the side. You can kind of side scrape, but it's about the same side scraping with like a Leo or an STB. Really, you're looking at side armor of like 40 mils, and it's really the tracks that are what's going to be baiting the people who are firing at you. I run what I run because it's pretty self-explanatory. I play it really close, so I try to get the shots aimed. I run calibrated because I never fire. I run this for HP because there's no armor. I don't run the track thing. Spotting, mobility. This because if I'm going to clear Sheridan or something like that, and I really need to ram, like let's say there's a target on 1400 damage and I'm on a ton of HP, I want to be able to use that ramming capability, just because like that reload's not going to happen for another 20 seconds, and I think there's a fairly solid argument for that. I'm not going to go over why I don't run HE. I'll probably explain that in another video, but I think that's about, yeah, I think I went over basically all I wanted to for what I think of the vehicle. I'm going to go over the game that I just had because it's still fresh in my mind. Immediately with the composition of both teams, I see that they have more meds and they have an IS-7 and a 263. That means if they go med side, they're basically going to completely destroy me. There's no reason for me to go right, because if the T-22 goes right, he could either die or run, and I think to myself, like, if I push left hard, I'll be able to get the win. Just especially because this thing is, you're gonna be surprised at how good this thing is in cities, just because like you never rely on the armor. And it doesn't really have DPM. It's not an alpha vehicle. It's not exactly a batch head either. It's good for getting large numbers of damage in on bigger targets usually. I make a mistake here in the opening play. You're gonna see that I wanted to trade with this IS-7, and I back up because I was scared or whatever. I should have just taken the hit there. Honestly, you can't really out-trade a TVP too easily if you get it against a single shot vehicle. Even like an E100, if they pen you with AP, you're gonna be able to get them for twice as much damage. It's very, very useful in that respect, because like, sure, I lost half my HP, but I also took like a big slice out of that IS-7. Not saying that's a good trade, I'm just saying that it's effective in what it is. I'm gonna make some aiming errors here. I didn't play this game much lately, so is what it is. That was pretty awful. But yeah, again, it's my bad for not firing heat or doing whatever. Not gonna go over that. Positioning wise, they're gonna YOLO that 22 the place to get out of here. My first couple clips haven't been that effective, but you're gonna see late game what this can really do. That 183, I'm just checking my lines of sight constantly on the 183 just so I don't get killed by him. This is a risky play I'm making here. I probably should have stayed a little bit more passive. That's okay though. I see the 263 just fired, and so I'm gonna put all 4 shots, or attempt to. And I'm gonna put a shot into the M60. I'm gonna speed boost across while these guys are still kind of disoriented. This IS-4 is almost gonna get me penned with the M60. And there we go, reloading the clip again. And again, like, it's like with the 50B, you don't have armor, and you're a relatively large target, so you're not gonna not take hits. You need to be able to be okay with taking just 1 shot in exchange for 4, because in terms of, like, shots per clip at tier 10, that's just, there's nothing that's really like this in terms of, like, the Batchat has the mobility, and it has higher DPM, actually, but it doesn't have the large clip with fairly comparable DPM. I don't know why he pushed into me, to be honest. Also, I don't know, this is probably worth mentioning, but, I'm on 1 hit, so I'm gonna be playing, like, more passively, but you can't really, there's no gun depression over the back. Like, it looks like there might be, but there's a little hump in the middle of the engine deck, actually, so it makes it a lot more difficult. But yeah, this is where the armor's gonna come in handy. Like, positioning-wise, its acceleration is pretty awful. If you need to change flanks, like, the power to weight's not the greatest, I don't think, but, it gets up to 60 maximum. It's, like, slightly worse than, like, a 140 or whatever in terms of max speed, but it's, in terms of acceleration, you're really not going to get much out of it, in my experience at least. But yeah, I baited a shot there from the E50. I'm not going to get the pen, so I'm just going to decide to empty the second 2 shells into the IS-7 to help out this IS-4. And I know that right now the E50 doesn't have shots on me. I'm just going to spend this time running from the E50 on the reload. I know that he's probably going to come around to me, and so as soon as I spot him there, I'm just going to get behind cover. And now I know that the best option I have for damage is the 183, and make a risky play there crossing in front of him. So I just YOLO the 183. I'm gonna die to the 183 later on because I make a stupid play, but that's basically the whole game. I get, like, that's my last shot of damage. Gonna see here, I load the clip because I'm not gonna get shots, which is the right play. It's really hard to decide whether or not you should reload a clip in this vehicle just because the clip load's so long. But yeah, I'm here, and then it's me being tired. Do not be indecisive in the TVP because that gets you killed. Like, literally don't do what I did there. But it's a high damage game with some demonstration of how useful the clip can be. There's another game, let's see if I can find it. It was on, yeah, here we go. I'm like 90% sure this is it. But yeah, you're gonna see me, like, almost never use the heat, and that's just because the mobility is, like, so good. You'll see in this game too, like, I'm running 22 heat. I decided to get rid of 4 of them just because, like, I never really fire them, and with how much Primo you're using, you're just giving up potential damage. And not that it's that important in this vehicle, but just I feel that, like, especially if you're never going to be firing Primo, you should just not, like, even worry about it. But yeah, the first, like, 10 or so games in it, I averaged almost 4K, but I started really, like, slacking in it. But yeah, I'm doing, like 2.9-ish in it now. Like, it's very, very effective at, doing mid-game damage. Like, early game, if you get lucky and you get, like, a good spot for crossing, you may get, like, 2-3 shots out. It's very rare to get a clip out, like, a full clip out early game. Like, I wouldn't expect that. Like, here, there's no shots for me, and if I had stayed, there's, like, no good angles for me just because my tank's so big and I don't have the gun depression. It's very, very effective at taking out isolated enemies, especially, like, non-turreted TDs, just because you can COD, and, just if you can stay out of the line of sight, if you can trade 1 shot for that 4, that's really what playing this vehicle is about, is just getting a target isolated. Like, this PTA here is just gonna die to me, because he's on 1100 HP, and he fired once, and I take 0 damage in return for that. So that's like the situation that you really need to be looking out for, is just a target that fires, and as soon as a big gun fires and you know that nobody's going to have lines of sight on you, you need to get in there and spend all 4 of your shots on something. Like, yeah, this 704 is going to kill the girl, sure, but there's no way he's going to survive this. Like, I just guarantee that with 3 shots, he's just going to die. And so, with that, this may not have been the correct positional play. I don't know whether or not this is the correct play to make, like helping which side of the team. But what I can say is that we eliminate that side and we get rid of that crossfire potential in the enemy team for them to like get around us. And I think that it was the correct play. I'm just not entirely completely sure, just because I'm a bit of a slump stat-wise currently. So, but yeah, that's not gonna comment further on that. I should have aimed longer at him there. You're gonna see the upper plate working a little bit of its magic there. You're not gonna really see that too much. But yeah, that's 3 shots into the lower plate of the E100. Even if he had penned me there, I'd still say that might or might not be worth the trade. Like, again, you're gonna trade a lot with guns. Not that I'm saying you should run in front of a gun to intentionally take a hit, but if you need to take, like, 1 hit, it has more HP than, like, a standard med, like, slightly more. It's the HP of about a 62 if you're running armor buff. I mean, not HP buff. That being said, though, the entire thing is HE bait for, like, a 4202 or a 183. You're not gonna want to poke to, like, big guns that are, like, larger than 120 millimeters, just because they're just gonna be able to take at least a third of your HP, and that's, like, in tanks like this and the Leo and, like, the 62 or whatever. Like, yeah, here, just because, their team's pushing through my team, I want to get rid of this E100 and clear the isolated target, and I know that I'm not gonna have shots on people, and it's not worth it to spend that time tunneling this one shot and penning this one shot. I should just reload the whole clip. That's one thing to keep in mind with, like, all your autoloaders, really, is are you going to tunnel that one shot, or are you going to just reload your clip and guarantee damage later on? And that's really what an autoloader is about. Like the Kronwagen, it's better to reload all your shots, because having that advantage of just, like, that 2-second reload is really what it's about in the TVP. And, I know that I got a little off topic, but I'm just, like, yeah, here with this bat shot, I knew that I could clear the bat shot with the HP that I had in my clip, so I'm like, no, I'm not gonna reload that. But, we clear him, and, we're able to get... This end is really, really stupid. I apologize for how fucking lucky I got. Yeah, it's a very, very capable vehicle. I know that people who are a little bit newer to the game might not understand, like, how to play it the most effectively, but positioning wise it can be very, very effective, just because you have that 60 kilometers per hour top speed. He tracks me, so he gets lucky there with that, and I was kind of counting on it, like, going low. He bounces off my upper plate, and I'm just gonna let the gameplay itself out. But if you have the free XP, if you have the time to grind it, get your hands in this vehicle, because I don't know whether or not Wargaming's gonna nerf this. The skill cap's pretty high. People who are good may not be really, really good at it, and people who are bad are really, really bad. So, yeah, that's the game. TVP. It's TVP review. Whether or not it's overpowered or whatever, I think it's like slightly better than the norm. At the very least, I think it's a very, very good vehicle. It has the gun handling of, like, a lot. It goes up against people and it punches above its weight in just gun handling. Get your hands on it. It's very flexible. It's very fun. It's very effective. And before I ramble too much further, that's me. Subscribe, like, whatever, if you learned something or you found it informative. Let me know. I take feedback. Join Discord server. I'm gonna stop talking now.